Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's program. It's Friday. Thank God it's Friday, right? Well, I'm glad you're spending your Friday with us for 1 hour as we focus on news that matters most to the African American community. And one of the things we're going to do tonight is something special. So because of that, here are my opening observations. It was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who stated this: that old law about an eye for an eye leaves everybody blind. The time is always right to do the right thing. And he also stated, there comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe nor politic, nor popular, but he must take it because his conscience tells him it is right. We're going to focus on that scenario by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. tonight as we focus on one of his young followers, a man who marched with him at the age of 14 and went on to do some great things and continues to do great things, not only for African Americans, but for the United States of America, as well as for the world, as we continue to focus on people who are making a difference by allowing their lives to be transformed by the renewing of their mind, not getting warped by the culture, not getting dismayed by the COVID-19 pandemic that we're in, but being focused on faith, hope, and love to accomplish the greater good. And those are my opening observations. Well, tonight we're going to do something special. A lot of times on this program, we have had many guests, notable guests, and we've heard them speak, but we haven't really drilled down on who they are, what they're all about, and why they matter. So joining me now is Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who is the president and CEO of the National Newspapers Publishers Association, as well as the Black Press USA. And Doc, the reason why I wanted to have this focus on you to launch this focus on chronicling the lives of people like yourself, who I consider to be leaders in the African American community and leaders of influence beyond the African American community, having a global impact, because I think it's important that we learn what goes into making the measure of a man or a woman become who they are. And certainly you can tell us your story because it is quite an American story, but more importantly, I view it as being a story of triumph, of hope, of faith, and of love. And it started when you were quite a young child, as I recall, growing up in North Carolina.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly, and I'm always pleased to be on the Kelly Wright Show. And on behalf of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, we thank you for every opportunity that you've given us to help get the message out. You know, my whole life, I grew up in the civil rights movement. I was very fortunate to have loving parents that permitted me to get my NAACP card, membership card, when I was 12 years old. And by the time I was 14 years old, I was on the staff. I was actually working for the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in North Carolina. I was a youth coordinator for SCLC from 1963 up actually to 1968, to the time Dr. King was killed in Memphis in 1968.
I got to ask you, what was it like when you were 14 and you're working along a man who would loom large in leadership and influence, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.?
Well, thank you very much. You know, Dr. King himself was a young pastor, a young freedom fighter, a young scholar, he was not only a great orator, he was a great leader. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference was interdenominational. It was Baptist ministers, United Methodist ministers, Church of God in Christ, African Methodist, Episcopal ministers, all of the various denominations that make up the Black church in America were part of SCLC. And the genius was it enabled us to have unity among us across denominational lines, across faith lines. And I learned at a very early age, and now keep in mind I was 14, but I had put my age up. I was driving a car at 14, so I had mobility. I was able to make the meetings in Durham and Raleigh and Charlotte and go down to Atlanta to SCLC headquarters. The thing is, but the thing I learned was leadership development. You know, if you want to be a good leader, you first have to be a good follower. You have to learn how to take directions if you want to give directions. You have to learn how to care about the people who are following you if you want to be a good leader. And I learned these leadership skills from working with Dr. King and others in the civil rights movement. And I grew. And then later, when I was went to college, I was a chemistry major, finished in chemistry. I was a chemist, but also I had this calling, and I went back to school after completing my undergraduate degree in chemistry to study ministry. I was so profoundly inspired and motivated by Dr. King. I wanted to be a minister too, but I realized I needed the proper training. And so through the United Church of Christ, I experienced a calling to the ministry. I finished Duke University, magna cum laude in divinity, and then went on to Howard to get my doctorate degree. But the point I'm trying to make is that we all evolve. And now it's 2020. So as I look back over the last 40, 50 years, even 60 years, I see an evolution. I've seen that our movement is not a straight line. There have been valleys, there have been peaks, there have been sacrifices, there have been hardships. Yes, Lord, we paid a price to get the right to vote. We paid a price to get this Civil Rights Bill, the Voting Rights Bill, the Fair Housing Act. All these pieces of significant and legislation has come as a consequence of struggle, come as a consequence of fighting for freedom. If you ask me in one phrase, how would I sum up my career? It's been a freedom fighter, a nonviolent freedom fighter. I think that we need to encourage our young people today. I'm concerned about our millennials. I'm hopeful because I see so much talent, Kelly, so much creativity, so much young genius in all of our families and communities across America. They just need the proper encouragement. So what we do in the Black press, we not only report the news, but we do it in a way that encourages people to strive in STEM, science, technology, education, and mathematics, strive to work on keeping our families together, strive to make a difference, strive toward excellence. And of course, you've heard me say this before over and over again. Personally, I have this worldview now about the oneness of humanity. Yeah. Believe in the oneness of God, but it's the oneness of humanity. And we cannot let racism and white supremacy hold us back or make us think that we're something less than what God brought us in the world to be. We have to always not allow those who would oppress us define us. We have to have self-determination.
And that's very important, the right to just the self-determination. There are a couple of things that you said that I want to come back from the break and talk about. You talked about the struggle, how you had to struggle. You talked about being a freedom fighter nonviolently. And we want to get more engaged in that personal fight that you had to wage in order to become this man today who looks at a need for the world to understand that there's one God, there's one creator, and that we're all created equal in his sight. So back with more of the Dr. Benjamin Chavis story, the chronicles, if you will, of Benjamin Chavis after this. Welcome back. So I'm talking to my good friend, Dr. Benjamin Chavis, who is president and CEO of the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the Black Press USA. But beyond his title, there's a lot that you've heard from the previous segment of what he did. You know, I find it so remarkable, Doc, that at 14, 12, you got your NAACP card. At 14, you're working alongside of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You're part of a movement in the infancy of its civil rights struggle. And then you move on up to continue to get your education. And you made it sound so easy until you talked about struggle. There have been struggles that you went through. There have been challenges that you went through. While you were talking about completing your degree at Duke University, you did that from a jail cell. Tell me about Wilmington 10.
Well, thank you. And the Wilmington 10 story is emblematic of the story of Black America. Uh, every inch of progress that we've made, we've had to struggle for it. Nothing was given to us. The right to vote, we had to struggle for it. The right just to sit in public accommodations, we had to struggle for it. And that's why I don't want anybody taking anything for granted. 2020 is the United States Census. We got to make sure everybody's counted, or else they're going to deplete resources to our community if we don't have adequate count of Black Americans during the United States 2020 Census. The vote in November. We got to have the largest voter turnout in American history this November. But the context of the Wilmington 10 story, you're right. I did finish Duke University, magna cum laude, and for master's in divinity degree, but I was in prison. I was a member of the Wilmington 10 during the 1970s, unjustly incarcerated, 10 of us, 8 of whom were Black high school student leaders in Wilmington, North Carolina, and myself and one white woman. We became known as the Wilmington 10. We were sentenced to 282 years in prison, unjustly. We knew it was unjust. We knew we were innocent, but we had to fight to prove our innocence. And I look at today with all the mass incarceration.
What was the offense that they would charge you, indict you, and then sentence you to that long term?
It was a battle of school desegregation in Wilmington in 1971. And a riot took place because the white supremacist group, Ku Klux Klan, Rights of White People organization, violently attacked the Black community. When Black people tried to defend themselves from an attack, a riot happened. And of course, 1 year later, in 1972, they came to a church that I was working at in Wilmington, arrested me and the other 9, and we became known as the Wilmington 10. The specific charges were conspiracy to arson and conspiracy to assault emergency personnel. No evidence, false allegations, false charges. It was the case they were saying, Kelly, okay, you're guilty till you're proven innocent.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't about any evidence. It was how the orchestration was stacked against us. We were framed up, had an unjust trial, and the judge gave us the maximum sentences. I had the longest sentence, a 34-year sentence. The others had 25 to 28 years. Aggregate all of our sentences together was 282 years. So most of the 1970s, I was in prison, but I just want to make a point that you asked earlier. When we go through hardships, and every life will have a hardship, your hardship may not be the same as mine, but every life will have a hardship. The question is, you don't let hardships break your spirit. You don't let disappointments break your spirit. Even when somebody does something wrong to you, you don't go out and do wrong to other people to justify it. 2 wrongs is more wrong. Always try to do what's right for yourself and other people, and God will bless you. So the Wilmington 10 ultimately, it took us a long time. It took 40 years for us to get a pardon of innocence from the state of North Carolina in 2012. From 1972 to 2012, that's 40 years. Intermittently between that, yes, I became head of the NAACP. I was the national director of the Million Man March. I helped found the Hip Hop Summit Action Network, got very much involved with Russell Simmons in the hip hop culture. I was a defender of hip hop as it first emerged, because a lot of people in the civil rights generation were, they didn't understand this cultural phenomenon called hip hop. And that's why even today, I'm always trying to connect with our young people, because somebody connected me when I was young, 12, 14, gave me an opportunity to be in the civil rights movement. And I want to make sure, Kelly, that we still open those doors today. This is no time to close the doors on our young people. They need to be open wider, giving our young people an opportunity to strive for excellence, to strive for success. And that's what the movement is all about. It's not, yes, we have to counter, we have to defend ourselves against racism, we have to stand up to white supremacy, but that's not all of what we're about, just reacting to the negative. What is our proactive vision of the world? What is our stance? What are we trying to achieve in life for our families and our communities? And that's why I'm so proud of the Black press. This year, 2020, it marks the 193rd year of the Black press since 1827.
Wow.
We have 230 African-American owned newspapers and media companies across the country. Ebony.com just joined the NMPA. So we have digital companies. We're mainly print, still printing. We reach over 20-some million people a week. And of course, now we have a partnership between the NMPA and the Black News Channel with your program, Kelly, the Kelly Wright Show. So it is another phrase from the African Liberation Movement is "A luta continua," the struggle continues.
And it does. And we're going to continue with more of my conversation with Dr. Benjamin Chavis right after this. Welcome back to the program. Again, I'm talking to Dr. Benjamin Chavis, and we're learning a lot about his freedom fighting, his struggles, and why and how he became the man he is today. And what I'm hearing, Doc, is that your life has been built and predicated on faith. You were called into ministry. You were following the example of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You were engaged in a political struggle with Wilmington 10. You were basically a political prisoner held captive. And yet that didn't deter you from completing your degree in a prison cell and graduating magna cum laude from Duke University. And then, of course, going on to Howard University. But I wanted to ask you something. You went on to the NAACP, and then after the NAACP, you helped orchestrate and create probably the single most defining moment of that era in the 1980s, and that was the Million Man March.
Right. It was in the 1990s. The Million Man March
1990s, yes.
Was October the 16th, 1995. And of course, Kelly, look, it's 2020. So this is actually the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March this year. And again, there's a little story behind this. When I was at the NAACP in 1993 and 1994 as the CEO, executive director of the NAACP, the leader of the NAACP for those 2 years, a lot of my colleagues says, man, don't get involved with that Million Man March because, you know, it's going to ruin your reputation. I said, what are you talking about? I said, the Million Man March is something to help all of our brothers, first of all, be more brotherly to one another. Keep in mind, in 1995, one of the reasons why we had the Million Man March, because the crime rate among ourselves, we were killing each other.
Killing each other.
You know, in fact, the Center for Disease Control had designated young Black males as an endangered species. Most people don't remember that, you know, in 1995.
Yeah.
And that's why we had the march, because we knew that if we were going to stop the killing in our community, I mean, to one another, the fratricide, we had to do something for ourselves, about ourselves. And so the faith that I had when I was 12 was the faith that I had by the time I was in my 40s and 50s, because faith is something that builds, it doesn't dissipate, you know, and you have to make sure you strengthen your faith. I believe in prayer. And God not only hears my prayers, but answers my prayers. Sometimes the answer doesn't come like what I want, but I thank the Lord for always answering my prayers. And I can say on this show, Kelly, without fear of any contradiction, the God that I serve has never let me down.
Yeah.
Never let me down. And so the Million Man March, you know, later in this year, we need to talk about what are we going to do on the 25th anniversary of the Million Man March. Here we are now, 25 years later, we're amidst a COVID-19 pandemic. I think there's a message for us out of that, what we did 25 years ago.
You know, and I pardon my faux pas for saying it was the 1980s. You and I met in 1993 there in Raleigh, North Carolina.
That's right.
And we've maintained a friendship all these years. And then I attended the Million Man March and was really applauding ourselves for what we had accomplished. And I remember quite clearly President Bill Clinton stating, no one should denigrate what these men are about to do. Because a lot of people were giving the Million Man March a lot of criticism before it had even happened. And it's because of the fact that we were endangered species. Doc, I remember going into a classroom to do a story on brothers getting along with each other. And it was a mentoring group. And that teacher said, if we don't stop killing each other, we will have to go to the Smithsonian to see what a Black man used to look like. And I
Right.
believe the Million Man March that you orchestrated along with Louis Farrakhan and other people from the Black community really was a turning point, if you will, for the way we look at ourselves as Black men and the accomplishments and contributions that we have made in the past and now in the present and certainly in the future.
Absolutely. And again, every time I'm on your show, Kelly, I think of these things we need to do. The Black News Channel, we need to do a documentary on the Million Man March. It's 25th anniversary. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, certainly he was the articulate, eloquent voice that God blessed to call for the march. And it was my job as a United Church of Christ minister at that time to respond to that call. When I heard that call, I heard God speaking through the minister. And I said, oh, man, I'm going to help make this happen. And it was a turning point because after the Million Man March, guess what happened? Black on Black crime went down.
Yeah.
After the Million Man March, African Americans started adopting our children. The National Association of Black Social Workers had a list of 25,000 young Black children that nobody wanted to adopt. Guess what happened? After the Million Man March, those children were adopted by Black families. After the Million Man March, at the march itself, we registered over 250,000 people to vote at the Million Man March. After the Million Man March, when the brothers went back to Detroit, they had to hire special people to collect the money when brothers went to start paying their child payments for the first time. Mm-hmm. So it was a turning point where we turned to each other, not on each other. It was a turning point where we discovered that if we unify ourselves across the many divisions in our community, we can make progress. And Lord knows we need that kind of unity today in 2020.
And we'll talk about that and more right after the break of where do we go now. I'm talking to Dr. Benjamin Chavis, a special report tonight on the Kelly Wright Show. Back with more after this. Welcome back. So we've been having a truth illuminating conversation with Dr. Benjamin Chavis. And one of the things that I hear from you, quite frankly, is that you have a concern about our future generation. And certainly our future generation is being tested right now because of this COVID-19 pandemic. What's your message to Black America?
Yes, these are stressful, awful times, sometimes deadly times that we live in. But young brothers and sisters, you're the blessed generation. You're the most intelligent. You're the most gifted. You're the most talented generation of young people that we've ever been blessed to witness. What is missing is encouragement. We don't give you enough encouragement. Mm-hmm. We don't give you enough support. We don't give you enough embrace. And so I just want to use these moments that Kelly Wright has given me to say to young African Americans and young Black people, young people of color, millennials, not only in America, but throughout the world. The future is yours. It's already in your hands, but you got to prepare yourself. You got to get a good education. You got to take care of yourself. You got to watch your health. You got to stay healthy, not just through the pandemic, but you want to stay healthy for the rest of your life. Because one of the things we found out, all these pre-existing conditions that Black people have, they started at a very young age. The habits that we take, the people that we hang around, who's in your crew, who's in your posse, who's in your group will determine your future. You're on social media. Every employer today, before they hire somebody, the first thing they do, look, Kelly, they look on your social media. Yep. And a lot of us put a lot of foolishness on our social media. That's going to harm your reputation. That's going to harm your resume. So you got to prepare yourself. One of the things that Reginald F. Lewis told me, and he was the first Black billionaire in America, I asked him, I said, Reggie, give me one word out of the English language that contributed to your financial success, to your global financial success. And Reginald F. Lewis looked at me and said, Ben, that one word is preparation. You have to prepare for success. You have to prepare for excellence. God has blessed all of us with life. but we have to prepare the lives that we have to strive for excellence and to achieve excellence in everything that we do. I'm proud to be a Black American. I'm proud to be an African American. I'm proud of my African ascent and descent, which didn't start in slavery. Way before slavery, we were kings and queens of dynasties. And we need to reclaim our proper place in the world, not to dominate another people, but to be loving and caring to all people. But you can't be loving and caring to other people if you're not loving and caring to yourself. You have to love yourself, love your God, love your parents, love your family, love your community, and let love outdistance any other attribute that you may have.
Well said, sir. Thanks for being on this program and sharing some insights about your life. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
God bless you. Back with more of the program. After this, we'll be talking about strengthening the family. So it's Friday, and welcome back to the program. Thank God it's Friday.
Yay.
And since we've got no place to go, George and Tandra stepped in to talk about friendship, because when the family is at home, are they really getting along as friends, or are they having some difficulty understanding how valuable friendship really is in the home, whether it's just a couple or they have children involved? Talk to me about friendship, guys.
Yeah, well, friendship, we think friendship should outlast those funny, fickle feelings of feeling in love, right? The average couple only experience that euphoric feeling of being in love for 2 years. And then once it goes away, you've got to have something that you have your foundation set upon, more so than those funny, fickle feelings. And so friendship should be, Wednesday we talked about that you should see a person that you want to marry during the 4 seasons, right? So you can see them in every season. Well, marriage has 4 seasons, just like winter, summer, spring, and fall. And so friendship should be at the base level of every season that you go through. Let's face it. There's some spring times where the flowers are budding and there's new things that's happening, and the summer starts to hit, and man, everything is happening. But then you go through fall and things are falling. Communication might be falling. Those funny, fickle feelings of feeling in love might be falling. But then you get a winter. And man, in New York, when we lived in New York, winter was hard. You didn't want to go outside. It was like there was nothing that was happening. And so there's plenty of things that you have to fight for and build your friendship. And so Gary Chapman, we love that book, 4 Seasons of Marriage. There's seasons in your marriage where you've got to know that we're building this together, and friendship is at that every level that you have to build.
Yes, I like to tell couples when I'm coaching couples through difficult seasons, is that, listen, you can't do marriage on autopilot, right? You got to be in that driver's seat. Marriage doesn't happen haphazardly. It's a very intentional process. You have to put the work in. So building into that friendship is the effort and work you're putting in, and you're not letting it go unattended. Because if think about a garden, if you just planted a beautiful garden and you just let time go by, soon you'll start to see the weeds kind of slowly coming in and choking out the life that was there before. So we have to attend to our marriages the same way we would attend to a garden that we want to see continue to thrive and be beautiful. So yeah, it takes effort and it takes work.
I'm laughing because she doesn't like the garden.
I don't garden, but I love watching him attend to the garden.
Husbandry.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that both of you are wanting to talk about friendship, because it is a value. And George, as you were talking about, and Tandra, the 4 seasons, you kept going to something that reminded me of a song. Winter, spring, summer, or fall.
Yeah.
All you've got to do is call, and I'll be there. You've
Come on.
got a friend. And that's what we really need.
Sure.
We
Yes.
need that kind of friendship
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
marriage, in our relationships before we get married. Friendship will make it last stronger, longer, and for a lifetime.
That's
But
right.
you know, friends do fall apart and they do fall out,
Sure.
which
Yeah.
is why you guys are on to talk to us about how to keep that friendship strong, that bond strong, so that we become family strong.
That's
That's
right.
right.
That's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah.
We've
Bringing on, guys. Have a great weekend. Keep on being friends,
Yeah.
and just keep singing that song to you.
That's
Yes.
good.
George and Tondra Gregory, I appreciate them so much, and appreciate you guys for always helping us make our family stronger by strengthening the family. See you
Thank
next week.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. See
All
you
right.
next
See you
week.
next
It's
week.
our pleasure.
God bless. More with the show after this. Welcome back to the program. So my next guest is someone I am delighted to introduce to you. Many of you may know her. She is Kelsey Scott, quite an actor, and she is doing a lot of work. But as you can imagine, we're all being impacted by COVID-19, including the members of our theatrical community, our Hollywood community. So from Broadway to Hollywood, Kelsey, people are just kind of shut down.
Yeah.
And yet we're seeing the resiliency that the people have, and you're no exception to that. What are you doing to go through this COVID-19 pandemic?
It definitely depends on the day. Some days I am very productive. Other days I'm really interested in what new recipe I'm going to try. But in general, I'm trying to kind of keep up with work. I'm trying to create some content. There's certainly things that on behind the scenes I have in development. So put in the time and the work, because we can still do calls and we can still do Zoom. And so it's not a complete work stoppage. We just can't be on set, you know.
Are you at liberty to talk about any of those projects that you're developing?
I can speak generally. How about that?
Okay.
I'll tell you about the two that I'm most excited about. Some years ago, I optioned the rights to a book that I just really fell in love with the characters and the storyline, and have been working for some years to really kind of get it off the ground. And so it finally looks like we've got some momentum, and we're developing it as a television series. I can tell you the book. It's Getting Hers by Donna Hill, and just an amazing set of characters, a built-in fan base, because she actually ended up doing some sequels. But I'm very excited about that project. And then kind of a project that got regenerated. The other half of my resume is as a screenwriter. And many years ago, I was hired to write a screenplay. And then I was writing it for a production company. That production company, the partners ended up splitting, and then their property ended up kind of just being on a shelf somewhere. And I came back to one of the producers and said, you know, I know in a work for hire scenario, you do the work and then you walk away because you have no rights to it. But I could not get the story out of my head, and we'd had it set up, and then that fell through, the nature of the business. But luckily I was able to come to an agreement with the producer to kind of get it back and start shopping it myself with a couple of producing partners. And so those are the two that are really kind of moving. And so I'm trying to use this time to make sure that once we are doing the in-person meetings and such again, that I'm ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah, it sounds like you're preparing for all of that. That's something that we all should learn from, how we should look at this time that we have with our families, or this time that we have alone, to actually keep planning for that day that we will return to some sense of normalcy. But yet we don't know what that new normal will look like. Let me ask you about some of your past participations in shows, like, for example, How to Get Away with Murder. What was it like playing in that role, and with that great ensemble of actors?
That is my favorite television role to
Is
date.
it really?
Yeah, it is. It's funny because someone asked me that question yesterday. They were like, what's your favorite role? I said, well, I've got a different favorite for each medium, but for television, definitely How to Get Away. Just because there are a number of reasons. But first, the character is so unlike me. And that's fun to stretch yourself and to step outside of your comfort zone and to take some risks. And so it was a lot of fun to find her, to embody her. And because I had the opportunity to portray her on multiple episodes, to grow her, because oftentimes when you're a guest star on a show, it's a one-off, or maybe you get a couple, but the opportunity to really kind of dig into her character and really discover who she was, so much fun. And then always fun working with Viola. She's,
Yeah.
I mean, she's amazing. And so the opportunity to share the screen with her, to share that artistic air, yeah, definitely one of my favorite experiences.
Yeah, an experience that you will likely treasure. Let's go back to the movies.
Okay.
12 Years a Slave.
Mm.
I had the pleasure of meeting Solomon Northrup's family, some of his descendants here in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area, and they couldn't stop talking about the movie enough, or about just the legacy that he left.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that, participating in that movie?
The first thing I learned is that you never know how something you do is going to touch people.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that we all felt it was a special story, that we all felt it was a special project, but you never know how that's going to resonate with an audience. You could be alone in your opinion, and with such a large cast, most of us didn't actually share the screen with each other. So it was kind of compartmentalized. There are some people I didn't meet. In fact, I didn't meet Brad Pitt until the night of the Oscars, so you just kind of never know how all of it is going to come together. And I think that the greatest legacy of that particular project was not even all of the accolades. I mean, listen, the accolades are nice, but I think that it managed to start conversations that people don't typically begin with each other, or different people of different backgrounds don't necessarily enter into intentionally. And it got people talking. And I think that that's what is special about art, is its tendency to begin and to initiate and to compel people to speak to each other, to try to see each other's perspectives. And I think that that was the greatest legacy of that film, that we started a conversation that was long overdue.
Stay with me. When we come back with more of the Kelly Wright Show, we have more of Kelsey Scott, and we'll talk about how she became who she is today. We'll explore some of that. Back in the... Welcome back to the program. So I'm having a delightful conversation with Kelsey Scott. Many of you know her. She is quite a talented lady, an actor, and she keeps giving great performances that make us think and make us react. And that's what good actors do. I want to talk about Kelsey Scott, the person, though.
Okay.
Where you're from? How did you get involved in this wonderful profession that you're shining like a star?
Well, thank you. First of all, that's very kind. I'm from Atlanta, born and raised. My upbringing was kind of in the arts. I think very early on, the ham in me challenged my mother's patience, and she was looking for a positive outlet for all of that energy, and it happened to be the stage. And so I got started pretty early. I think my first bona fide theater performance was at 6. I started working in the theater scene in Atlanta, the Alliance Theater and Jamandi Productions and 7 and 1 and Youth Ensemble of Atlanta, and kind of all of that. My life was extracurricular long before even the schooling began. And then it just stuck. I never thought of it as a career. I mean, it was just fun and fulfilling, and I couldn't get enough of it. And I have dipped in and out over the years. I mean, I was pretty involved as a youngster, and then I went to performing arts high school, and then I kind of stopped the in front of the camera thing to go to school. I got my bachelor in broadcast journalism from Florida A&M, and then a master's in film from Florida State, and then came out here and was kind of doing more of the behind the scenes when I first moved to LA. And I just missed acting. I missed the stage, I missed the screen, and found a way to come back on both sides so that I could be a screenwriter, so I could create some worlds, and then an actor so that I could create some worlds differently. So,
Thank you for being on the Wright Show, and God bless you in all of your endeavors. And don't be a stranger. You can always.
I will not. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
All right. Thank you. God bless. We're back with more of the show after this. Welcome back to the program. And now for my final word. I hope you've enjoyed the guests who have appeared on tonight's program. I want to go back to a quote that Dr. King also stated. He said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." On this program, we are never going to be silent about anything that matters. And you know what really matters the most, my friends? It's you. It's you and what you can accomplish in life. Don't let anyone turn you around. And also, as Dr. King stated, let no man pull you so low as to hate him. Be the better you, not a bitter you, a better you. Hopefully you've been righted, united, and ignited to keep spreading love, freedom, and peace. We leave you now for a great weekend with the Love Train.
If you don't feel the groove, it's all right. Just give it time, give it time. Come on, y'all. Get on board. Mankind won't survive if our hearts beat inside a hateful rhythm. You see, love isn't bought, but comes with a price of forgiveness, and we all bleed the same. Yeah. If you don't feel it now, just wait. It's coming on, the love train. Just give it time, give it time. Get on board. That means you and you on the love train. Get on board. All creeds and colors, brothers, all sisters and sisters on the love train. Get on board the love train. Everyone's invited. We're all united on the love train.